My name is Gene Jensen with BassResource.com. This is the first of a series of videos that I'm going to make that is totally dedicated to jig fishing. So let's go ahead and dive right on in and talk about the different jig heads. Okay, let's start off with one of my favorites, the Arky head. Okay, I'm going to show it up close. This is an Arky head. I want you to notice a few things on these jigs. Notice the angle of the eye as it comes off of the hook, and also notice the direction of that the eye is pointed. You've got some that are pointed crossways, and you've got some that are pointing up and down. Okay, and we'll talk about the differences and the reason those are the way they are. You select your jig heads according to what you're going to fish. Okay, let's just go ahead and talk about this Arky head. The Arky head, if you look at it closely, it's got a nice little concave bottom, or a little rounded bottom, and it's fairly flat on the bottom. This is the ideal skipping head. Okay, if you're going to skip underneath docks and things like that, and you're not really good at it, or you've never tried it, this is a good one to start with. Okay, I'm going to dive in with another video totally about Arky heads, and it's going to be about skipping jigs, and I will use this one, and I'll tell you everything that you need to know about getting started skipping. But that's your Arky head. The next one is an Allterrain jig sent to me by Seibert Outdoors. He makes some great jigs, and this is one of my favorite ones that he makes. It's basically an Allterrain jig is what it's called, and I like how he leaves his weed guards really long so you can trim them off and do what you want to with them. We'll talk about trimming here in just a minute. But once you look at the line tie, notice it's going the opposite direction as the Arky head. And what that is for, and also look at the eye. Notice that the lead is molded around the eye, and that makes that jig almost entirely weedless, and it's very difficult to get this thing snagged up. You can get any jig snagged up, but this one will get snagged up a lot less. It's got a great hook. It's got your little barb to keep your trailer on, and it like I said, it will go anywhere. Okay, now let's go into everybody's favorite, a football head. It seems like it's been several years, but something started several years ago when Mike McClellan won a tournament out on Clark's Hill, and he was using a football head, and everybody else was using all kinds of other lures, but he ended up winning it. But this is a football head. Pretty self-explanatory. Head looks just like a football. It's really good in rocks. It's not good in riprap, which is a whole bunch of boulders and everything along the bank. It's still going to get hung up if you fish it slow in riprap. What I like about it is it's almost like a shaky head. You get it into the rocks and you start feeling the rocks and you just sit there and you shake it, and it just wobbles up and down just like this with the skirt on it and the trailer and everything else. And you shake it and you let it sit there, and you shake it and you let it sit there. And that's kind of how Mike was using it. He would pull it into these scattered rocks that we have on Clark's Hill, and he'd just sit there and he'd shake it, and the fish would come down and thump it, and he'd set the hook. When it falls, it's got a nice little wobble to it, and when you're dragging it on the bottom, it actually wobbles when you're dragging it. So it's a good bare bottom jig, and it's a good in scattered rocks. I don't like to use them in thick rocks. This is what I like to use in a thick rock. Another Seibert Outdoors jig, and this is a ball-headed jig. Okay, this is a light one. Also, people use them as finesse jigs and things like that. And the reason I like the ball-headed jig is it is easier to get out of the rocks when it gets hung up. But if you fish rocks slow, you're going to get hung up. So I fish rocks like riprap and things like that a little bit fast. I'll keep them bouncing on the bottom and I'll keep them moving. And this thing just seems to come through the rocks a little bit better for me. Once again, got a long weed guard, and really nice to trim it up. A swim jig, another Seibert jig. Pretty self-explanatory. Look at the line tie, same thing. It will come through grass, so you can use this as a grass jig. Put your skirt on and everything else, and it comes sliding right through the grass. You can yank it out of the grass pretty easy. It cuts its way through. Really good jig head. Really does the job in weeds and sometimes in trees. I don't like to use it in brush, because when you bring it up on brush, it tends to roll just like a spinnerbait will, and you're sitting there shaking it on the brush, and you roll and bring it over, and the hook's sitting right there on it. Not a really good wood jig. Good wood jigs are the Arky head. Another good wood jig is my favorite head. This is the one I tie the most for myself. Is a rocker head, and Seibert Outdoors also has one like this. It's got a Gamakatsu wide gap hook on it, and when it lands on the bottom, it lands up straight up just like that. So when the fish comes down and grabs it, it's got all the hook in its mouth. Great head. The line tie is not a grass, you know, or the eye of the hook is not a grass hook. Okay, so it's not going to do good in the grass. Does good in timber. Does good for flipping and pitching. And that's pretty much that's kind of what you look for with jig heads. Look at the line tie, look at the angle of the eye. There's so many different ones. Everybody's got different angles, different eye turns, different everything, different hooks. There's just numerous numbers of jigs, but pay attention to what they are and use them for what they're best at, and enjoy fishing them. Thanks.